Hey guys, so I have here with me Jason Gerber. So Jason Gerber is one of my clients in the Relationship Revel program. And the reason why we're having this conversation right now is that Jason's story is one of the most inspiring stories that I've ever come across because when Jason and I first met, I mean, his situation was extremely hopeless. And I think one of the things that we'll touch on here is that, a lot of people think that the situation is very hopeless. And because they're so tethered to that sense of hopelessness that a partner feels or the hopelessness of that situation, they often don't feel the motivation that they need to actually get the help they need to grow in the right ways. And it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. And Jason was definitely not one of those. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jason, first, just to kind of for you to outline what was it like for you before you joined the program and what was your relationship like and so on.
Okay. So the relationship leading up to the program was really rocky by that time. It's gone through so many peaks and valleys, but by the time I got to the relationship, it was pretty much over. We had a very tough year with COVID. I had a son who had brain surgery at the time. I had a couple other things going on personally with business, and all of that affected me in ways that it just made me really act out in different ways towards my wife. We were by the time I joined in November, December, it was completely lost in my mind. Like, I didn't think there was any chance of us getting back together, but I was seeking out ways that we could still become great co-parents, figure out ways that we could get along. Maybe there's a chance for a relationship, but I felt like the damage was already done. And I didn't really feel like, as much as I cared, I didn't really feel like she was ever going to care again.
Yeah. So describe it for the readers, because I think a lot of people are not aware of how closed off your partner actually was, I think. Because I remember you telling me some stories about how she would react to anytime you try to talk to her or even just be in the same room with her even. Say more about that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos to say the least. It was anytime I try to talk to her is basically met with how she hates me, how she doesn't want to be around me, how she can't believe, what I've done. How could she cause her to be in this spot where she didn't want to be a single mom, and just why didn't I ever listen, and telling me to get out of the house, telling me I'm ruining her life. And this was every day. This wasn't just once in a while. This was literally every single time we had a chance to talk, I would say something that would trigger that reaction.
And what was the internal state like for you? And like, was it anxiety you felt? Was it hope? I mean,
It was horrible. It was horrible to hear that from my wife, who I'd been with for 6 years, who I cared about so much. And I just couldn't even understand, like, how could you hate me? How could you? It's all the things that we learn and we gain through this program, but understanding the neediness and kind of making her feel guilty in different ways unknowingly by saying, how could you do this to our kids? How could you do this? And the whole time I was just so confused, and it just hurt. It was like I was getting punched in the gut every single time,
yeah.
every single day, that I would hear that.
Yeah. And you mentioned something interesting here, which is that before you joined the program, you saw how hopeless things were and how much she hated you, and she expressed that every single day. And I think this is what a lot of people feel too, is that we can only imagine so good of a result, right? It's like, okay, I think a relationship to where we can go back to how we were and becoming happy and smiling and loving and romantic again is out of the question. Now I'm just kind of in survival mode. I'll be happy to settle for just being a good co-parent. I mean, tell me more about that. Like, I mean, what was your expectation like when you first joined the program in terms of how high you could go or how good you could potentially make this?
I didn't think it would get I didn't think it'd get where we're at now by any means. And now we're still climbing the mountain. I feel like we're still trying to get there. But um, I felt like if I could find something to show her that if she put the effort in, then she would find that love again. If she would start doing things as well as I was doing things, she would understand why I'm still in love and maybe why she's not, because maybe there's these actions and stuff.
Mm.
So I more or less thought that it's probably not going to change because she's not going to be a part of that. But I thought that, we could at least figure out how to be friends. Maybe if I can make some changes, we could figure that out. What I didn't expect is the changes that I make could really drive the relationship in so many ways, in so many positive ways, just by by one person making those changes.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize too, is just how much power one person has over the relationship in terms of creating a good positive feedback loop, to where when you start to change your actions, you'll notice that your partner's actions does change too. But I guess before we get too deep into that, can you paint us a picture of what the relationship is like now? And how long has it been since we've...
Yeah, right now it's pretty calm. You know, immediately once I learned how to stop that whole negative loop and the arguments, that almost went away. So for the most part, it's pretty calm. Right now, there's a lot of, you know, I love you and I love you back. There's a lot of, hey, you know, we're talking about a vacation right now. We're talking about, you know, buying a home again. We're talking about all these things that I thought were gone. So, you know, and it's right now, it's still, we're in the mode of trying to figure out good routines for each other, trying to figure out what makes sense to help each other out, where before we were just kind of on our own islands doing our own things.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely she's totally bought into the idea of a future of a relationship now. And I remember you mentioning something funny one time where I think she actually put the divorce papers on your desk for you to sign it at one point.
Yeah.
And then one day it just kind of disappeared from your desk.
Yeah.
And that was when everything started to come around, right? Like, that was kind of funny.
So she put it on my desk a few times, actually.
Okay.
She emailed them to me. She put them on my desk. There was a month straight when I heard about it every single day. And I'd be like, no problem, let's go through it, because she didn't want to go through the attorney. She wanted us to work everything out. So she put her spin on it, asked me to put my spin on it. And so for 3 or 4 weeks consistently, it came up. And I kept, you know, going through the process with her and letting her know I support it and all that. But yeah, literally it was sitting there on my desk one day and I'm looking at it on a daily basis, almost a reminder of how important this is to get this right now that we're gaining traction and heading in the right direction. Yeah, and then one day it just disappeared. I still don't know where it is to this day. I don't know if it got shredded.
Maybe that's something you ask her later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to it? It was paper. So I want to go back to this notion of, you had a lot of resistance to overcome, as in everyone who applies for our program, who schedules a call with us, who is on YouTube. You know, a lot of people think that their situation is the hardest, is the most unique, is the most intense, is the most dire, is the most difficult. And they always ask me like, Jeff, can your program help if I am in this situation, if my partner's doing this? I'm sure you had the same doubts in the beginning too, in terms of what this program can do and what you can do yourself and what results you can achieve. I guess what kept you going despite the very intense resistance that you had? Because you couldn't even get a word in often. What kept you going despite the fact that you're not guaranteed any specific results or any amazing results, really?
Yeah, no, it wasn't any spectacular results immediately at all. But if you're being perceptive, you do notice things changing pretty quickly at the same time, even though it doesn't seem like it does. You know, in a matter of weeks, I was able to conversate with my wife on a calm level. The very first night I learned about the negative feedback loop, I stopped it, you know, and I was able to stop an argument cold in its tracks and watch her face just melt by the reaction that I gave her. So for me, it was seeing those little champagne moments you talk about. It's those little moments that keep me going, because I felt like, man, if that changed, what else can change? You know, and so every day or every week, I was able to look back and really evaluate how much really had changed. And it was like, man, it just kept me encouraged. Like, imagine where I'll be a year from now. You know, and so that's basically what it was.
So you really just made this about that internal shift and gauging the internal shift. And you can say, okay, if I feel myself changing in these massive ways, then the outcome and the results will come naturally. And so that conviction, I guess, you have in your internal changes just kept that faith and that belief in you that, okay, the results are going to come. It's just a matter of time. Is that...
It did. And the more that I recognized the changes in myself and what I'm capable of doing, I started noticing the red flags from everybody around me. I started noticing people making all the same mistakes I did. And it made me start realizing, like, hey, this is worth going through, because what the program's teaching me is to elevate myself as a man. And that man's going to be really hard to pass up on, you know, by my wife or by anybody in the future. And so I could definitely not like in a cocky, overconfident way, but just say, man, this guy that's being created, who I'm still working on, is going to be the right guy for, for anybody really.
Yeah. One of the things that I think all our clients face, and this is just the nature of the journey too, is that once you start to change the way you speak, the way you talk, like you said, it's gonna kind of shock your partner a bit. Was there a time when your partner was like really doubtful of whatever it is you were doing? Was she suspicious of it? I mean, describe the initial reaction when you first
Yeah,
started.
I would say the first 4 or 6 weeks easily. The whole time it was, you know what, you can take this therapy, you can take this counseling, it's not going to do you any good. You are who you are. You already made your bed. There's no way you can change. Everybody always tells me there's no change, and that's the thing. She's hearing from all these people, smart people, that that you just can't change. It's not possible. And so yeah, I mean, for 4 or 6, maybe even, 4 or 6 weeks, maybe even a couple months, I heard it a lot. Just like, no matter what you're trying here, or what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish here? Because it's not going to work.
Yeah. The biggest shame that I see a lot of people going through is, they're stuck in this tactics level, right, of their life. They see something on YouTube, something I say, they try it, and it doesn't work immediately. And then it doesn't work because their partner tells them, maybe if they ask questions, their partner says, stop sounding like a therapist. Then they kind of give up and back down, and they don't realize that that's actually part of the journey. Is that paradox of change again, that whenever you try to change your behavior, people are going to be suspicious. But you got to have that internal conviction, like you said, to be able to push through that and really believe in the reasons for why you're changing and what you're changing. And they actually have a very good reason behind it, and not let those external resistances really slow you down, right? I mean, how hard was that for you? Or do you feel like once you are in the program, you can kind of get through that and bust through that with your conviction?
It used to be incredibly difficult. And I would say only for a week or two in the program, it was really hard, because I really soaked so much of it, and I trusted the process. So I trusted that, hey, if you do this, there's no guarantee what the outcome is, but it's still going to be good no matter what.
Yeah.
So, the things you're talking about there, it was extremely difficult. And there were times when it was really hard to hear what's coming out of her mouth, or to deal with some of the things, or to, say something, or to ask a question, or be like, why are you asking so many questions? Why are you doing this? I'm like, well, I'm just trying to learn how to communicate. I'm trying to understand you more. I'm trying to get to know you a little bit here.
Yeah.
So those times are really hard, because then I'd freeze up. I'd be like, oh man, now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
But it was difficult for a short while. But I think once you start understanding a little bit about the program, and understanding the paradox of change you're talking about, and those very important keys, as far as that help you develop the patience, and help you understand, like, hey, emotions and logic, and why what you're trying to do isn't going to work at this time. And if you give her that opportunity, and just really show her that you care in the ways that we learn, it's just incredible. It's so powerful. So it was easy to look past that in the moment, because I felt like it was going to come back around full circle.
Yeah. So I think you touched on something that a lot of people struggle with as well, which is that resistance. Whenever you destroy that safety or that trust, your partner's going, like, you could give your partner $1 million. She will tell you that you're giving $1 million to be like manipulative or something like that. So she can take something really good that you're doing and just resist you really, really hard. Stonewalling, gaslighting, whatever it is. And a lot of people think that, stonewalling or gaslighting is really just a character problem. But in your case, I mean, your partner, I guess you want to label it, right? That was gaslighting, when you just berate someone every time that you see them, right? But it wasn't really a character problem. I mean, I think you're starting to see also, and you have felt that there's actually more to stonewalling and gaslighting than actually meets the eye.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I used to think it definitely was all character. I thought that's who she was. I blamed it on the way she was brought up. I blamed it on, all these things I seen around her that didn't matter, because ultimately it was me. It was the way that I wasn't listening. It was the way that I wasn't paying attention. It was the way that I never even knew how to be in a relationship, not a healthy one anyways.
Yeah.
So the thing she was saying was all out of just emotion, just so mad, just so upset that for 6 years she was trying to tell me stuff that I wasn't hearing.
Yeah. I want to touch on this thing you said about whether it takes two to tango or just like what one person can do, right? Because that's the biggest myth that I hate that myth, because I think both of us, like myself and you, we're the very epitome of that. It doesn't take two to tango. I guess, like, was that a belief that you subscribed to before joining the program or before coming across my videos, or what was your take on that? Yeah.
100%. I thought there's no way that somebody could make such drastic changes and it affect the whole dynamic. I was probably typical, like so many other people, where I'd try something, I would read a book, I would do something, and I'd try to get her involved. You know, I would do something for a short time, and when it wasn't reciprocated, I just gave up. And I just always, that you're taught that, everybody teaches that, and you kind of learn that, like it takes two to tango, but this has proved that so wrong. You know, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, as I changed and as I showed her the admiration and the stuff that we learn in this, those things just shine and they start oozing out of her, and that's the parts that she wants to show. And you know, then she watches me change, and then all of a sudden she wants to change, you know?
I think what's interesting too is this is something I hear from a lot of members too, is once you start changing the way you speak, your partner kind of just emulates that eventually without you telling them to. But I want to go back to this point of, like, you know, the takes two to tango thing. So a lot of people, I think they say, oh, how can I save my relationship if my partner is not willing to try, right? Or we tend to also try to blame our partner to say, well, I could work on the relationship, but she's being the difficult one. I'm sure you had those two thoughts specifically when you first started as well, right? But I think what you also realize here is that when you start to do the first work in creating the safety and trust, your partner kind of catches up a bit. And then you just have to take the next level. And so often I think a lot of our partners are actually willing to do a lot more to save the relationship, to help contribute to the saving of the relationship than we think, but maybe not at the particular moment when that safety and trust has been so gone. But all they need is just a kind of a whiff of hope, which is led by a leader like you, for example, to start that positive feedback loop again. And so you don't have to do all the work. You might have to do the initial work. It's kind of how your experience went as well, I'm assuming here.
Absolutely, 100%. It's, you know, it took a little while because, again, she was so resistant.
Yeah.
But I think at a point in time, she didn't want to yell and then not be yelled back at. And so it kind of registered like, what's going on? You know, and then you talk about catching up, and it absolutely is. You know, I feel like there is that, you know, her catching up and everybody else around, you know, because you got these people around you saying, wow, you've made these incredible changes. Well, she's the last person that wants to admit it. And so when she finally does, you know, that's a really good feeling, because you're questioning how, you know, are these people really being honest with me, or, you know, what's going on? But, you know, as far as her catching up, like all the things that I was doing to show her how I admired her, she started showing me ways she admires me, the ways that, like you talk about the communication, just in a different tone and looking for solutions. I never once talked about trying to find solutions. But now, even when we're in the middle of something or we have to come up with a solution, we got to, you know, that's what she brings up. Like, hey, you know, I brought that solution to the table. What do you think? And so it's interesting to see how it all evolves.
Yeah. It's funny, when I'm looking at this conversation, we're using the frameworks too. Conversation. But yeah. You know, you mentioned like it took a long time for your partner to really understand and believe in how you've bettered yourself. Now, I think that term, bettering yourself, is such a overly used term in this industry. Like, you watch every video, people tell you to better yourself. I guess, you know, I'm sure your journey in trying to better yourself didn't just start with my videos, right? It started way before then.
Oh, yeah.
what was your idea of like what bettering yourself meant at that point in time in the beginning?
I mean, I tried starting to better myself from the time, 20 years ago. I've been
Yeah.
trying to better myself. And I did a lot of good things when it comes to work and career and all those things. I found all the right keys to figure some of that stuff out, how to be successful. But I never figured out like what I was missing. And so when I came across this program about bettering yourself, I think the one thing I realized was I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I didn't know how to love. I didn't know how to appreciate. Some of the things I started doing the previous year leading up to it, because, my situation, while it's not different, I did cross a line I never have in my life, and I became violent in my situation. Got myself in trouble. We had to go through a lot of things. So immediately after that, I started doing like anger management. I started, reading all these books. I started reading how to repair the relationship after, such an incident. Started reading everything online to figure out if it's even possible. And most everything you find on there says it's impossible. Once you cross that road, cross that bridge, it's really impossible to get that back. So while I was trying to improve, I was trying to do everything she said I'd have to do to improve. There was nothing really helping me.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of scattered things everywhere.
Yeah.
And this program kind of pulled it all together in one spot.
Okay. Besides synthesizing everything together, I think this is something that I have a hard time articulating to people who haven't taken the program too, in terms of just how deep and how high we go in the standards in which we better yourself and the right ways we better ourselves, right? Well, what's the main, you've done a lot of self-development work. What would you say are like the three main differences in our approach and what you learned here that was like, that became the eventual game changer for you?
Well, number one, going through some counseling, there's nothing that says do this. There's no like, here's what you should be doing to make this right. And so I think number one, the program gives so much information on how you can just start acting different, how you can look at everything different, how you can, use your all those different mindsets in order to, wipe away either viruses, or how to, have first principle thinking and all those different things. So I think the activities behind it, whether you realize that they're not as activities, like that's what I felt like. It's giving me great information, a guideline to kind of follow, to kind of create how it works for myself. So I'd say number one, that was huge. Number two, I would say, with all the information that's in there, I felt like it was organized in a manner that worked too. And it was very clear. Like, it wasn't like, hey, do this and just trust me to do this. It was like, it would go through this whole process of, here's what's going to happen if you don't do it. Here's what's going to happen if you do it. Now do this. So I felt like you have the process, but then you also have the explanation on the good and bad and what's going to happen. And then to build on that a little bit further, it wasn't making promises. It wasn't saying, I'm going to guarantee any results, but here's the things you have to be expectant of. And so be expectant that your partner is going to be this way. So, those little steps and those little things right there helped me tremendously, because it's like, okay, she's going to be mad at me. She's going to, I started changing, she's probably going to get even madder at me. Yeah. And so I knew that going into it. And so, when she got mad at me for being happy when I was going through these changes, because I just went from down in the dumps to a matter of 3 weeks, I was happy again. And that made her mad. She's like, and that made her really confused. Like, and I didn't want to confuse her. I didn't want to make her mad, but having those kind of those areas, building up to it and kind of breaking it down and all those, I think those were critical for me in my development.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You touched on something very important that I think a lot of people outside the program can't really relate, which is, here you are, your wife was serving you divorce papers. She was telling you she hates you every single day. And you generally went to a place where you said, I was enjoying being in myself, which is a weird thing to say, I think, for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And I think first, just to call out here, is that what people don't realize is the internal shift needs to come first.
Yeah.
Right? Without that, you cannot even expect external changes.
Yeah.
And I think you felt that, but I guess what was the key difference for you in terms of that shift from being miserable because of the impending divorce to being happy despite impending divorce? What was that journey like for you?
Gosh, that's a great question. There were so many little things. Like, I don't believe there was one thing, but I would say, regarding the internal shift and going from point A to point B, it's just recognizing the man that I was capable of becoming. So I remember this guy I used to be before going through life and chaos and all these things and all these self-inflicted wounds and all these viruses that are constantly in your mind and all these negative thoughts and all these things you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I've always been somewhat positive, but I think being positive that, these changes are drastic and they're pretty incredible and pretty remarkable. Again, every day I could feel a little bit better. I could feel a little change. So at some point that internal shift, I recognized that, okay, my wife is never going to love this person I am in this moment. She fell in love with a completely different guy. Nobody would love this guy.
Yeah.
So if I ever want her to love me again, if I ever want anybody to love me or want to be around me again, then I have to become this better man, and I have to figure it out. I have to find a way to get there. So that's really what it was. It was kind of myself taking accountability for who I was, and also being accountable for the fact that, why would she want to be with that guy?
Yeah. Makes sense. You mentioned something too, which is the hardest part about my job, I think, Jason, is dealing with a lot of sometimes the hateful comments that I get on my YouTube channel, because a lot of the stuff we talk about do run very, very counter to what the general public talks about. So for example, we say it doesn't take two to tango. I mean, there's a lot of things here that runs very counter to what general public talks about. What's the few stark things that comes to mind when it comes to like the massive paradigm shifts in the way you see the world, the way you see the relationship, yourself, your partner, from before and after you went through the program here?
Yeah, I agree. It definitely goes against everything I've ever learned. When I was told to get to that point, I'm going to shut this off so it doesn't ring again.
Yeah, I'll get it.
When I was told to get to a point of accepting what she's saying and also appreciating and say, I understand, and I feel the same way. When she was telling me she wants to take my kids away to another state, she wants to change her name, she hates me so bad, she doesn't even want them around me. Like, when I first heard this, I was like, how could I possibly do that and encourage her to leave? And so I think that's, until you actually try it, until you actually go through it and recognize, like, man, again, it's her emotions. It's not even really how she feels. So I get why everybody gives has those comments, because they just don't get it. They're afraid to try it. And I was the same way. I've been like, there's no way that I would do that. There's no way, that I could give her that gratitude of, I understand, I appreciate that. But, now, like I said, going through it, again, it's 100%. One person can fix it. One person can destroy it just as easy, and I think that it goes both ways. And I think that often is what happens.
Yeah, you're right. If one person can destroy it, then one person can rebuild it, right? If one person can change it, then of course they can change it to the positive too.
Yeah. And so I think that, like I said, I understand why people think that way, but it's because it's the way society is.
Yeah.
I think it's just the way most people learn and are taught, but nobody ever teaches this. That's the other problem. We're just all figuring it out.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part to teach too, and to learn as well, is this idea that we talk about in the program too, of like the balance, right? Finding that balance. So for example, a lot of people, they run into troubles in the relationship because they become too controlling, they become too dominant. Whenever problems happen, they put their foot down. So in this case, if your partner was to say, I'm going to take the kids away, I want a divorce, you put your foot down and say like, oh, that's wrong, you can't do that. I'm going to call the cops on you, or whatever it is. Now they go from there, and they look at the videos and they say, oh, you have to create safety. Then they go to the other extreme, which is becoming a doormat. But we always talk about this middle ground where we say, if you embrace the extremes in anything in life, it's not going to work out. It's that middle ground that you want to embrace. I mean, what does that mean for you now? Like that very rich topic of embracing the middle. What does that mean for you now? How do you
A
see, for
lot,
example,
because
like just to give you like a specific example is how do you see what being masculine means now, or being a leader in a relationship means now, or just other parts of your life too?
well, I think, real quick, the extremes, I definitely went from one to the other. And, I was giving her so much safety. I was afraid to not be a doormat for a while. It wasn't until, I think you and I had a conversation just about that. And it clicked, like I was seeing it, the balance, but I wasn't really getting it.
Yeah.
But I felt like using the frameworks and different things, I was able to not put my foot down, but again, kind of conversate about it a little bit better. Like, why do you want to do this? Is this really important to you? And kind of figuring out and finding those solutions again. So I feel like that was something that's easy to do, to go from one extreme to the other. And then I'm sorry, Geoffrey, what was the follow-up part of that?
I guess, how do you see that now? Like, how do you embrace that philosophy now? How does that manifest in the other areas of your life, and how you embrace just the middle, and that middle place of want where you're not too dominant, you're not being a doormat, but you're finding that middle ground?
Yeah, I think across the board now, it's still oozing out into other parts of my life. I'm still I did really good with my wife, but I didn't realize how bad I was still in some other areas.
Yeah.
But I do recognize, like, the different extremes, like during the workday for the business, for example, when something used to go wrong, and after you had a week full of several things going wrong, it seems like it's that point where you're going to just blow your gasket or something, But what I've learned, and dealing with this is controlling all that and utilizing, the things I've learned to recognize that, hey, you got to work through this in a healthier manner so it doesn't consume you, so that it doesn't, cause you to make a bad decision where you might act out emotionally. You might fire a guy that you shouldn't be firing.
Yeah.
Just like in the relationship, just, when she does something that maybe upsets me, maybe it's been a whole week of upsetting me, there's no real time for that. So regarding the masculinity and the feminine, or having the feminine side as well, I've enjoyed that. I've actually enjoyed that part of the teachings as well, talking about that. I've enjoyed, like, understanding, like, masculine compared to feminine, and being in the moment, and before I was always a problem solver, and I was always trying to fix things, typical masculine stuff, where now, like, going to the stores, if she's interested in something, taking a moment to appreciate it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
With the kids, I'm always trying to fix something, figure something out where, I recognize how she's more in the moment. She's more just right now, not concerned about the long term. So
Right.
I think that's been fun to find that balance.
Yeah. I think what's amazing to me is, and when I created the program, I never thought it was going to be received this well. But what's amazing to me is how, if you look at the Facebook group right now, people are making a game out of this program almost. It's like they're having so much fun with the process. It's like a video game for them. And they talk about exploring different parts of themselves and exploring new mindsets, new ways of thinking, new philosophies, without attaching it to, will this get my wife back? And it's beautiful to see, because again, the internal shift is so needed to happen first before we can ever expect external or the world to really believe in our changes, really. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think that, like you talk about it, it's affecting other parts of our lives. I was right at the time starting a new business, and so much of what you taught kept me grounded. I had waited a long time to get my license. We invested everything in the business. I had to wait 90 days to get to work. So I had 90 days to sit around and pout about my wife and my situation, and also no work. And I'm stressing, trying to figure out how I'm going to keep guys busy. But it kept me grounded. It kept me looking at the whole farming aspect in that, as well as my relationship. And it was perfect timing for everything going on in my life. And it probably would be at any point in time, but it just seemed like it just broke everything down around me.
Good. So you were probably watching YouTube videos for a long time before you came across mine as well. And when you came across mine, Jason, how long did it take for you to say like, okay, screw this, I'm pulling the trigger on this program?
So I actually, I don't know how many other ones I watched. I definitely was searching around online, and I definitely was spending a lot of time watching, like trying to find any sort of information. But I remember coming across yours. I was trying to find more books. I was trying to read more stuff. I was trying to do more of that. So when I started the YouTube and started to learn different things and learn different stuff, I don't know how I came across yours, but I stopped looking at everything else. I was just like, man, I watched this, and the very first one I watched, I believe it was about the emotional security, and it was about the negative loops and things like that. And it just, something just clicked, and I watched it for the next couple weeks. And this is when my wife had just kicked me out.
Okay.
So I got kicked out on Sunday, and that night I watched your first YouTube video. On Monday, I was able to stop an argument and realize the change that very next day. That very next day, she had already talked to the attorney also about the divorce.
Yeah.
So it was that evening before I even knew that, when things were, and I was able to put, I don't remember 100% what it was, but basically just, I was able to stop it right then and there just by one of my reactions and not responding. And so, yeah, it was, I did a lot of reading and more reading online than YouTube's, but none of it was very helpful.
Okay. Was it shocking for you to see how much material and how deep we go in the program from just like watching YouTube videos and then going, oh, this is much more than.
It was. It was very shocking because I was like, man, I'm not getting this anywhere else. And I'm like, I'm just going to watch every one of these. And I did. I literally, every time I got in the car, every time I was at home, every time I was whatever, I was looking up Geoffrey. I'm trying to find another video. Did I watch this one yet? Or I was watching one that was out there that I watched many, many times, and just trying to really understand some of those dynamics. So I was very shocked at how much information there was out there to begin with.
It's funny because, like, you know, people think sometimes like the information I have on YouTube is just, that's it, right? That's, if you buy the program, is basically what you get on YouTube, just more synthesized together.
Yes.
And I really have a hard time articulating that it's not, right? It's like, it doesn't even skim the surface of what how deep you can go. It goes way, way deeper than that. And yeah, it's just, it's good that the clients are seeing that as well. Just, this is next level stuff beyond just what we discuss on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. And when I joined the program, and I think you and I talked about it, or maybe me and Jared, or I know I posted it, but I was like, there's no way I could get any more information than I got from online here. But what I thought I was getting was the interaction. I thought that I was getting to interact more with yourself and people who care about the situation. So I thought that's what the program was going to be. And it was, and it's great. You have that coaching ability. But the very first day, I was blown away. I was like, this is so much more than I ever expected. And I was hanging on to every single word, every single module. And it didn't matter. Like, you'd be like, hey, this is going to be a beast of a module. And I was like, bring it on. Because after I went through the first one or two, I was like, there's going to be so much information here. You know, I just hope I can retain it.
Yeah. Because like some of that, so for the people who don't really know just what a beast of a module means, some of the modules we have are over 3 hours long because we try to go deep into a particular topic. And yeah, I'm surprised at how well the members take it as well.
Yeah, no, and I think, you know, being honest and upfront about it, but you know, it's up to us to do it. Like, if we want to get everything out of this, it's important that we do it, and it's important that we take our notes and we pay attention, because there's not a minute in there that's wasted in my mind.
Good. Happy to hear that. And I think you touched on a very important point here, which is kind of like what we try to distinguish as like either failure success or successful success, right? In a sense of, now that you understand the mechanics, the principles behind everything we talk about here, yes, there's still going to be stormy moments, conflicts, misunderstandings. And the point of relationships is not to avoid those conflicts, avoid those misunderstandings, but to have them and be able to steer your way towards them and be okay. And
Yeah.
it's almost like when you understand these principles, it almost feels like you're driving a car a bit, where you can take control of the steering wheel, and even though it might be traffic, it might be really bad weather, you're not going to panic because you know how to steer it away from trouble, right? And that's kind of the difference between, I think, people who understand principles versus people who don't understand the principles, who only understand the tactics, in that they get the results maybe, but they don't know what led to those results, which sucks. That's a very anxiety provoking thing to feel.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really look at things I learned here really as tactics as much as just that. Like, and maybe they are considered tactics, maybe they're not, but I think it's just reality. It's the reality of, hey, if you want this to be healthy, here's the things you have to do. And if you fall back into that old mannerism, if you fall back to being who you used to be, you're going to end up right back where you used to be. And so I think, being able to catch it early on, regroup, come back, go through the processes to do the right things, I think is huge. And I'm still trying to tighten those bolts. I still want to be able to catch it sooner. I still want to, stop myself from giving solutions when I should be asking her, more questions. I want to still figure that out. Like you said, it feels like you're going higher and higher up the stairs, or higher up in heaven. I agree. And the anxiety I used to have when we had a disagreement or argument was like, oh man, this is all over. She's going to leave me. She's going to do whatever. Now I don't have those feelings. And, like you said, we're talking about vacation for the first time in 4 years. We're planning a vacation. And just 3 months ago, 2 months ago, even, she wouldn't even talk about date night with me. She doesn't go anywhere. She would tell me, if you need a vacation, go. I don't need to be with you, go. So it's interesting. Even today, we're talking about going to Malibu down in Southern California and planning it. And so it's nice. And I know that she's still getting there too. Like, she loves me. I know she loves me, but I can tell that this journey isn't over. And I can tell that, we're still going up the mountain. While passion's there, I honestly haven't even finished the passion module, because I feel like, I feel like that's come and it's there, but it's not something that I need to be spending my time in right now. I actually spend most of my time going back in phase 1 and 2 to really strengthen some of these things, and how we communicate, how I use the frameworks. Even yesterday, I was listening to the frameworks again, because I felt like last week really took me back and I forgot some pieces. So, and I want to continue climbing. I want to continue doing that.
Yeah. Which is why you have access for life, because I want you to explore the higher levels. I don't want to just like take the program and do the program once, get to level 5, whatever it is, and stop there. I want you to take this program and get to level 100. And I want to be there with you. I want to be able to learn from you as well, so it's a good symbiotic thing. With that.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that I can always go back into it. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've redone something, it just clicks. And I don't.
You do that a lot. You redo modules more than anybody I've had. Like, you probably redid the whole course like 3 or 4 times by now, right?
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. And there's certain videos that I've probably watched 10 times. And even though now I'm going through my second time, I say. But yeah, I've listened to it so many times, and I have a tough time retaining it. I take my notes and I'm able to do it then, but I've learned that I've just really got to drill it in. And then when something comes up, I like the way you have the little, in the videos, you can scroll down and see by the minutes where certain parts are. And I love having that, because I can always go and find something that I'm searching for as well.
Yeah. So tell me about, you said the effects this has on the other parts of your life has been amazing as well. So for work, for the relationship with your family and so on. I mean, talk more about that. Like, because I think, this program, like you said, is very hard to retain because it's so much more information, but there's so little fluff because everything is impactful. Everything is needed. Everything is required. And it just changes your paradigm and your worldview in such a massive way. It will not only just affect your relationship, but everything else. I mean, talk more about that.
So business side, there's no doubt in my mind that I can be a great leader now. Like I felt like a good boss. I felt like I was in a position for a reason. I felt like, I have certain skills. But now, the way I used to communicate compared to how I communicate now, I feel like it's more productive. I feel like the team gets more out of it. I feel like I have more respect. All these years I've had so many employees and so many people under me where, they come and go and I don't hear from them. Now, even an employee who I might just write off, I still get a text from the guy like, hey, how are things going? And whatever, even though we just had to part ways. So there's that side of it that's where I'm really trying to still tighten some bolts. I got a lot of bad habits there, just like in a relationship.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to utilize these, appreciating that they have a thought too. They have something to bring to the table. And so trying to utilize the frameworks to allow them to do it, sometimes come to solutions that really help the business, where before we going so fast, I didn't give them the opportunity. It's the way it's going to be. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Family side of things, that's what really hit home. My stepmom, who I love dearly, she's one of the most important people in my life. And she's loved me to death. She took me in from the time I was a little kid. She accepted us. I had 4 brothers, and she accepted us as her own. She just treated us like gold our whole lives. But I always was kind of stuck in my own ways. I was always about me. I was always never a good communicator. I always just had my attitude, it is what it is. And talking to her after starting this program, I got her to open up. And basically, she didn't say, I didn't love you all these years, but in a roundabout way, she's like, I really couldn't stand the man you were. And she brought things up from 20 years ago that hurt her, things that I did that she was unable to express to me. And so that really, and that was even before my wife started opening up. That's when I realized that, man, I've really got to buckle down and realize what I've done here, what I've caused. And, when she told me that, it shook me to the core. I mean, it made me cry. It made me really upset. It really made me mad at myself for not recognizing it and not recognizing how I made her feel. And then friends on the same side of that. I've had friends who I haven't talked to for years, and a lot of for the same reasons. But then when we had a chance to talk and they had things going on in their life and I was able to help them through things I learned on here, we have such solid relationships, and it's incredible now to be able to be in this position where people actually ask for advice. Yeah. I don't even feel like I'm there. I don't feel like people should be asking me for advice yet. I still have a tough time understanding some of your own terminology. Like I understand it in my way, but I don't know how to pronounce half of this stuff.
Yeah. The challenge also is, I think, for a lot of members that we have too, not just you, is we forget just where we were.
Yeah.
And we get to this point now, and we're using these terms, like you said, and these words, these new philosophies, these new ways of looking at things as if they're normal life. Yeah. But if you look at the way most people live their life, this is very far from how people live their life. Yeah. And we always take that for granted. And I feel that to a great degree. I think I hear you saying the same thing as well.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I think that the more I go through this, the more I recognize just how different we are. And I wish more people would be a part of the program, because I do believe this is something that should be taught on a more regular basis, just like finances. We should learn a little bit more about our effects and how we can treat people. I see the red flags all the time now. And even a girl who I dated a long time ago, she actually works for me now. And that's something else that's incredible, that, being able to communicate with my wife and her and what she's going through, and to circle that wagon in a healthy manner and make it work for all of us. But I remember her going through an issue, and she was having all these emotions and all these feelings about something that, after going through the program, it really didn't matter. Yeah. And I told her, I said, hey, why don't you try this just to stop that negative loop? Why don't you just see what happens? Why don't you do this and then see if you're able to conversate? And it changed her life and her relationship overnight. She was blown away. And we spent about a week and a half just talking about different things from the program that she's able to utilize. And I've watched her change from kind of this, she was at a state too where she's kind of a fireball. Yeah. now she's just really calm and collective and really thinks things through. And so
Yeah.
it's just been amazing to see it and kind of bleed out and rub people in that positive way.
Paying it forward.
I'm trying to. I'm really trying to pay it forward, and you know it's hard because, like you said, you say some things and they're like, "That's not going to work," you know, and it's like, well, just try it, you know, just try it, you know, just trust that it can work, and then if you still don't believe it, watch this YouTube and then try a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really remarkable, and like I said, I'm getting asked a lot of advice. I feel like I made a lot of progress.
Last question before we kind of wrap up here. I think the one thing that a lot of people are wondering is, you know, how are you supposed to create safety and create trust when your partner is super resistant? You can't even get a word in the early stages. I mean, what would you say to those people? Like, I always get this question a lot, but I want to hear it from you. Like, what's your interpretation of this, having gone through it?
For me, it was shut the hell up and listen. And, and listen and really listen. Really appreciate that she's feeling this way for a reason. She's it's probably not even why she's saying, but just listen to her and appreciate it. And you know, don't just say that I understand and I would feel that way. Like I think you talked about in the program or maybe somebody else, but it was like you got to really feel that. Like you can't just say it because she's gonna pick up on it.
Yeah.
You got to really understand, like I said, you know, when she was even talking about, I'm going to divorce you, you know, we're going to leave, I'm going to take this. I understand why you feel that way because I did this, right? Is that what you mean? Is that what's causing that? And as I was able to navigate through that, that started creating, I believe that's what was creating the safety. So just allowing her the opportunity to say what she feels for the first time ever and not get a reaction from me in a defensive manner, in a manner that I was going to make her feel bad, in a manner that I was going to punish her, unknowingly punish her, but I was in different ways.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a wonderful point. Like, even, you know, you mentioned like, just shut the hell up and listen. Yeah. It sounds simple, but if you look at the program, I mean, we have literally, you know, almost 50 hours of material telling you, teaching you the mindset of how to listen. Because I think people think that, oh, listening, just look like you're listening with the intent to listen. I think that's what people say, right? Listen with the intent to listen or and not respond back, whatever it is. But that doesn't work. We actually have to go deeper than that to actually understand how to listen in a very proper way and be able to showcase and show our partners that how much we actually understand what they're feeling. There's so much mechanics behind that people don't realize as well in how to listen, right? So that's an interesting point too. Like you mentioned the word listening, like as if it's simple, but it's actually really not. And I think that's what's really hard to grasp as well in the program too.
Very hard. And I still don't think I'm a good listener unless I take that mindset of I need to understand what this person's saying and be able to agree with them.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's really helped me. Eye contact, I get the days, I might just eyes glaze over, whatever. But this program has taught me a different way to listen and just that manner of really trying to understand at a different level. Like there's a reason behind this. And so that's helped me more than anything. I'm still not a very good listener like I want to be.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. And
for sure, like, never ending. Again, the levels change, right? The levels change.
But that's back to the security and how does the security get there? By listening and by acknowledging and by giving her what she needs, you know? And
yeah. And I think you brought up another good point about listening too, in that once you listen, I think you start to see the different interpretations or the different angles and perspectives that makes you kind of go, oh, shoot, whatever my partner did, while I was really upset at it before, I thought it was abuse, I thought it was narcissistic, I thought it was terrible. And now I actually understand it. There's actually a very, very good reason why she does the things she does. Yeah. And a lot of people cannot ever get there. But when you truly listen, I think you got there a lot of times, right? you constantly find yourself like, oh my gosh, I was such a dick for thinking that of her, you know, making that assumption. So, yeah.
No, you're right. And I think that I thought she was so verbally abusive. abusive. I thought this woman was the most abusive person I've ever met in my life. She said some of the meanest things I've never even heard out of anybody's mouth ever, let alone my own wife, and the way she's talking about me and the things she's saying. But, you know, she said it because I wasn't listening. I wasn't hearing her. Like, she got to a point, she had nothing else to say. She's trying to say things to push me away.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, you know, and it's hard. Like before this program, that's all I thought about. Well, you're so abusive because you're just like your mom. You're so abusive because you're just like this. It just runs in your family.
Yeah.
But now she's nothing even like that. Not at all. She has her
Total
moments
180.
occasionally. Yeah. She has her moments occasionally. Like if I really push her buttons, which 2 weeks ago or last week, whatever it was, there was a moment that I pushed her buttons. But it didn't last for so long, and she was able to apologize, and I was able to apologize and kind of say, "Hey, we probably shouldn't do that, you know, anymore." But it's man, I think that was the first time in 6 or 8 weeks, and I don't know how long it's been since I've heard anything along those lines at all. Like it's just, and I used to hear it every day.
It's incredible. Yeah. So incredible how character changes when the environment changes, right? It's incredible. Yeah.
I think that was an important message too, just really that you put in there, just understand that like character, you know, compared to the environment. And I think that's something really quickly too that helped, like breaking the two apart, understanding, you know, why are we in this mode? And it was easy for me to say a lot of times that, I was a dick. I get why we're here. I know what I did. And that was, you know, back to planting those seeds and how we planted them and using that method right there. You know?
Gotcha. Well, I think we're at time. It's been over an hour, I think.
Oh, wow.
Fast, huh?
Yeah.
So I guess just closing words here, Jason. So there's a lot of people out there who they're dealing with a very dire situation. Their partners told them like, no hope. It doesn't matter what you do to change. I'm not changing my mind. I want divorce. It's hopeless. Don't even bother investing in anything because I'm not going to change my mind. I mean, you were there. What would you say to those people right now?
Man, I would say don't do it unless you're really going to do it. But if you're going to do it, and you're going to put the time and effort, and you're going to invest in it, then do it, and just trust in the processes because it is possible. And you know, from my own experience, when I never thought this was possible at all. I never thought that I would ever hear my wife say, "I love you" again. I never thought that I would hear anything but divorce. This program offers so much to help people just like us in that situation, through people who are going through the same situation as well, to lean on and help each other out and help keep each other strong and help motivate each other. I'd say you have to do it. You have to give it a shot. I mean, everybody gives up. Everybody gives up. Everybody just throws in the towel. That's the way the world is right now. Mm-hmm. So be different, you know, and what do you have to lose? Because if you give up, you lose. But who cares if you put 6 months into it or put a year into it? Because you know what? You give up, you're going to be miserable for that next 6 months or a year probably anyways.
Good point. Yeah.
So you might as well go through it and give it a shot and give it a try. And I believe that this program is the best that I've come across. I believe it offers more for people just like myself and people in this situation. I think there's a lot of people who can use it. And so I highly recommend just doing it. You know, just don't worry about what they say. Just dive into it and do it.
All right. Well, thanks, Jason. I think I found this very inspiring. I think a lot of people did as well. Yeah, I think so. For those of you guys who are subscribed to my mailing list or YouTube, I'm sure you're going to see Jason's story pop in quite a bit in the future because his story is really inspiring for me. So thanks, Jason, for jumping on with me. Yeah, great to have you.
Well, thank you, Geoffrey. I really appreciate all you've done for me and everybody else too. So looking forward to being part of this for a long time.
For sure, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Bye.